Okay, we're back. Let's continue. Some housekeeping. For this session, I'm going to experiment using these poker chips from the Cowboy Bebop RPG as bennies. If you play Savage Worlds, you can use these to do a certain amount of things like reroll, kind of change the narrative at times, but typically you would have that associated with each player character, each wild card. For me, I'm going to use it for the entire party, just to kind of limit myself. I don't want to go crazy on giving 3 bennies per player character, which would just be absolutely insane and hacking across the board. But this, I believe, would be just enough to give our team a chance at very vital moments. So, do a little recap of the last episode. Wholf was able to converse with the Zordon face that appeared at the tower, at the top of the tower of Purge, answering 2 out of 3 questions riddled successfully, thus unlocking and achieving the Firestone. So picturing Link holding up the Zelda sound effect, ba-da-ba-bum, he got the Firestone. Now he has to make his way downstairs, and as I've mentioned before, the Tower Purge is a living organism. It is a structure, but it is sentient, so it does kind of move and waver like a snake. Like as you can see in the picture, it is like Leaning Tower of Pisa almost, kind of Pisa, kind of tilt to the right there. But now, because he has achieved the stone, I'm assuming there's going to be some environmental effects. The stone is what kind of gave that red glow at the top of the tower. I don't even have to ask the Oracle about it. We know for the fact that if he takes the stone, now that he has the stone, the tower doesn't emit that red glow anymore. But because of the environment, it is still dark, generally in that mile radius that I've mentioned before, kind of a 3 by 3 surrounding the tower itself, as noted here. It's about 50% darker, which I'm supposed to apply certain penalties when we do certain actions, some skill checks or danger moves, as Maze Rats calls it. So for this episode, I may or may not use Mythic, one-page Mythic. It'll be up here just in case. Obviously, I have Maze Rats also for any content generation, but I actually have an idea of how this episode can start. So, we know that both, unfortunately, Sarv is incapacitated, but he did heal one, and so did Garlax. They're about in the same condition. Rayla is watching over them at the very bottom of the tower, looking up, which she can't see much because of the darkness. However, I did not carry over dark vision from Beckme, and to be honest with you, I may not. Next, we have Wholf, who's at the top of the tower, and he's making his way down as we speak. He's going down the spiral staircase of doom, and he eventually gets to the halfway point. He starts to see the darkness slowly fading away and revealing the light at the bottom of the tower. He gets to the very bottom. Rayla is somewhat relieved to see he's still alive, and they reconvene. He and Rayla both share details on what happened, mostly him. Rayla says that there hasn't been much going on here. How did he fare at the top of the tower? He says he saw a giant globe-like structure that spoke to him. He thinks this tower is alive in some manner, but he shows her the stone, and her eyes are sparkling with hope as she sees this very valuable item in front of her. Now, this item is a magical item, and as I've insisted before in my world of Exeter, which this is taking place in, and a lot of my previous campaigns have, that's kind of a ever-growing route for world building, kind of a foundational system I've been working on. The items in this game, magic is only bound to magical artifacts. They are imbued with magic. The magic cannot be summoned out of thin air by individuals. They must be held by people who are competent enough or who can roll successfully to use the magic in the item. Some items that are, let's say, common but not, how should I say this? I'd say items that have magical spells that don't exactly do anything impressive, like an explosion or reality warping, but maybe like casting invisibility, or that's temporarily or possibly a light heal, one-time effect. But for the Firestone, which is a very rare, powerful magical artifact, the spell that it casts is permanent, can be recast, but though the severity of it will increase. What I'm trying to say is that the most powerful of magical artifacts, like the Firestone, the magic imbued with it is permanent, but it can only be cast, let's say, once a month or a year, for example, but it does not lose its magical properties. That's what I'm basically trying to say. Lower items like a rock or a scroll that has a magical properties can probably only be casted once, and then it vanishes into thin air, kind of like the Karen RPG. So I'm kind of borrowing that element, but I'm trying to make it where magic is around, but still tied to the most powerful of artifacts. So, if I recall correctly, um, we also got a super strength potion, which may just boost Wholf in combat. There's also the edible plant that I've been kind of debating on what it does. He shows the edible plant to Rayla and believes that this can actually help one of the two injured party members. So what Wholf will do is give the plant to Garlax, who is not unconscious anymore, but he's very uh, worn out. Let's just say he's hurt, badly hurt, but uh, on the border of life-threatening. However, he's not unconscious. So I'm going to roll a question for the Oracle, or should I say a question? Yeah, for the Oracle, I guess. Let's say he's going to give the plant. Wholf does not entirely know if this edible plant, will heal him. He's not too sure of its properties. Rayla grabs it from his hand before he gives it to Garlax and examines it. So we're going to roll 2d6 to see if Rayla, she is an elf. Um, I'll give her a bonus plus. I'll give her a advantage on this roll. Perhaps she has experience in that department. Very vague experience, but let's roll for it. I'm gonna roll 3d6 and choose the highest. Let's get our tray out and choose the highest of the roll, the highest two. And the difficulty will be, let's keep it at the basic 10. She has no bonus for willpower. So there it is, 11. So the 6 and a 5 is 11. Which means she is able to decipher the fact that this edible plant will do the following, and the following we will roll on the one-page mythic. What it does is 93. It stops 22. It stops dirty. Okay, so that's very vague, which is the purpose of the oracle. It stops the word stop, the key, that's the keyword I'm really looking for. Dirty can perhaps be the whole situation, that he is hurt and he is in a very dirty situation, trying to make sense of this. I'll mainly favor the word stop, so it will stop the pain, but it won't heal him completely. Let's go with that. So she gives him, Garlax, the edible plant. He starts to smell it and then he eats it while his eyes are closed, and we'll heal just 1 point. So his health is back to 3, or is to 3, but he's not healed completely. That plant only stops, it calms the pain, but it does not heal him. Thus, the plant has been used and is no longer in his inventory. So I'm going to remove that from the items list of Wholf. Now, the structure, the Dark Tower, the Tower of Purge, sorry, not the Dark Tower, the Tower of Purge, starts to move a bit, and the ground shakes, and we hear a loud echoing voice from above speaking directly to Wholf. Rayla can also hear, but it seems to be directed at Wholf. The voice says, "Leave my place." And thus, they take the hint, they're going to get out of there. So, Garlax can kind of walk, but more of a drag. Sarv is still out of it. So, Wholf helps up Sarv, picks him up. Rayla kind of has Garlax over her shoulder, over her side, helping him walk in a way towards the exit. So they leave the Tower of Purge. So they're officially out of that structure right here, which is 5. And now they are back on the trail. They cross over the drawbridge. The drawbridge, the portcullis closes itself, and the drawbridge lifts back up. And the bridge itself, they are now back on the path, which is going to be S6. So let's write that down in our notes here. Basically, we healed, well, I should say, temporary, like a quotations there, healed Garlax, and now we're outside on S6. And it is roughly, let's see, that was all 12 p.m. I'm trying to consider all of the events that just transpired will probably lead up to 2 hours later in the day, so at 2 p.m. Now, as the party exits the tower, they see 10 individuals standing right in front of them on the trail with weapons not drawn but by their side. These 10 are actually city guards. And they stand, let's see, these are city guards. They look very familiar to our party. There's no roll needed for knowledge or some kind of history check. These are city guards, and they are from Shadowscape, the kingdom that's just right here in our map. So city guards from Shadowscape. What these 10 want to know is why there's one individual, there's one maid, there's one captain that is inquiring. He introduced himself. Let's add a new character here. So 2 stars typically for new characters. Captain Sol, let's see, I already have Sarv. Captain, let's say Savory. Captain Savory. He steps forward, and then again, there's 9 behind him. And he asks directly at Wholf. He says, "You 4, you have been tasked by the king to retrieve the Firestone. But we have heard that you have partnered yourself with a known criminal of the city Shadowscape, the kingdom Shadowscape." And he points his sword at Sarv. Sarv is, again, unconscious. Wholf, I believe, who was holding Sarv? Okay, Wholf was holding Sarv. Wholf steps forward. He says, "Captain, we do have the item the king is seeking, but we have made a deal with this man, criminal or not. He has helped us with find this item. If it wasn't for him, we would not be here right now. If it wasn't for his efforts, we would not be here with the stone." Rayla is torn because, remember, she was mentored by Sarv in her past. So she's remaining quiet. She doesn't want to become complicit to the matter. And so Wholf looks to Rayla and he whispers, "You know Sarv best. He is your friend. How do you wish to proceed?" Rayla, let's see. I'm still not going to use a Benny for this. I'm going to save it. Let's roll. Let's see what she does. Let's do 2d6. I want to ask the Oracle how she responds. I could just decide, but I want to see what the Oracle says. Blue is yes, red is no, obviously. Does Rayla let Wholf give Sarv back to them? let's say 50-50. That is a very strong no. She is loyal to Sarv, perhaps cares for him and to an extent, and does not feel it's worth giving up. Wholf, again, is split here because he's a leader and Rayla is part of the team. Garlax cannot exactly have an input on the matter. Sarv is unconscious and is the one being wanted by these 10 guards. We're not going to fight the 10 guards. Wholf knows that. He's not going to fight and spoil the contract they have with the king to find these stones across the land of Shadowscape, or the land of Exeter. But Sarv is a criminal. So here's what's going to happen. Wholf has an idea. Wholf, remember, has the Dark Jewel that was potentially what Sarv is looking for. We don't know yet. I believe it is the GM. I'm saying as the GM, it is the stone. The Dark Jewel is what Sarv was looking for. But Wholf as a character is assuming that's the item that Sarv was intending to retrieve as part of the deal that they worked out to go all the way this distance to retrieve it. Wholf steps forward with Sarv over his shoulder, and he walks up to the captain of Sarv in his hands, over his shoulder. Maybe he's just not like toppled over him, but he has him over his shoulder. I'm trying to figure out how to describe this, but let's say like this. Here's Wholf, and Sarv is just kind of leaning against, being dragged while he's over. Sarv's arm is over Wholf's shoulder. So he sets him off to the side, and Wholf tells the captain, Captain, I understand that Sarv is a wanted criminal, but how much is it worth for his declaring of his name? Now, the captain, let's roll here. This is not trying to pay off a cop situation, but it's more so trying to buy his freedom. So let's go on the oracle here and say unlikely, but perhaps the captain might be slightly corrupt. So let's say unlikely. 88. That is a very solid no. However, this is where I will use a Benny. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to purchase the Benny, allowing the captain to agree by taking the Dark Jewel and clearing Sarv's name, thus gaining respect of Rayla, even more respect. So we're going to spend that Benny to clear Sarv's name. The jewel in question, the captain gives the jewel to a certain individual in the team of the 10 guards. One guard walks up and basically looks at the jewel and determines its price. He believes the jewel is worth 1,000 gold. The captain looks back at Wholf and he shakes his hand and says, "You have a deal. Consider this man free, but don't let us catch him back in Shadowscape, or we will arrest him on the spot." So, Sarv is a free man with the removal of using the jewel and using that Benny too. So I'm right down here that the Dark Jewel, which was 1,000 gold pieces, which is a huge sum, was used to buy his freedom. I'm writing this down because it's very important. Once Sarv becomes conscious, he will be flippin' pissed. But on the flip side, he is no longer a wanted man. I'm not saying he'll turn over a new leaf by any chance. I'm just saying he'll have a fresh slate to move on to somewhere else to rob. He'll be able to go anywhere else he wants in the kingdom, in this area, this world, to continue his criminal lifestyle. Now, the captain also inquires about the Firestone. He says, "I will take," because he says, "because you're Your friend Sarv here is banned from Shadowscape. I'm gonna also write that down. Sarv is banned. Let me write that again. Is banned from Shadowscape. He cannot go in the walls ever again. I will actually write that in his notes here. And, or actually, it might be on the backside. That's why I like printing on these note cards. They have these lines. So, star, banned from Shadowscape. And again, that's why I use the Benny to just kind of push that idea through. All right. Now, as I was saying, the captain, Captain Savory, he says, you know what? Let's change his name to I. Captain Savory with an I. There we go. Captain Savory once again says, because your friend here is banned from Shadowscape, I myself will take the stone back, personally to the king. Wholf does not give the stone back to the guard, to the captain. He says, no need. We are going to return to Shadowscape. We will keep Sarv outside the walls. Myself, I will go in the kingdom myself, hand the stone back to the king, and inquire about our next task. The captain looks to his guards and says, so be it. But remember, keep him outside those walls. The guards leave as they head back east. They head back to Shadowscape. And now our team is alone in this dangerous area of the Deadlands. So, what will happen next? We will see in the next episode. I will continue to use just the 2 bennies in the next episode, not 3 per episode, and maybe reset them once we reach a milestone. That I'm still trying to figure out. But I don't have too much time in my hands right now. It's been a pretty rough week at work. However, I wanted to do this kind of a quick episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you do like the idea of using these bennies. If not, mention in the comments, and I'll probably remove them. But again, I just have 2 for now. Maybe you have some suggestions of how long I should use a Benny, because this was a short episode. I don't think using 3 per episode is really fair to challenges in general, to the concept of chaos. But the question I want to pose for you guys, my viewers, how long should I have the 3 bennies available to modify the narrative, to push a role, to influence a moment throughout this campaign? Should it be only during a quest? Within that span of a quest, point A to point B, where point A is the mission accepted, we go through the path itself, and return back to the quest giver or the mechanic that gave us the quest. That window itself would be the bennies. So write that down what you think below, and I will consider it as a suggestion. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.